This is the RTX 4090, and all of these games came out in 2023, and today is officially the last day of 2023. Hi, this is E-Rock on Tech, and today we're taking a look at the 4090 one final time in 2023 to see how well it stacks up at a native 4K resolution. And now, speaking of resolution, this time of year, a lot of people have New Year's resolutions, and if that is you, let me know in the comment section below, what are you hoping to achieve in 2024? As for me, I'm hoping to keep this channel going, but better than ever. I want to upload more consistently. I want to give you guys more polished content, and I know some of the comments are going to say, what do you mean more polished? We love your content. It's great, and I appreciate that. I've already read some of those comments, but I like to keep going. I like to make it as good as I can make it. You're giving me your time, and I want to show my appreciation by not wasting your time and getting straight to the point of the content as soon as I possibly can. And that's why today's video does not have any sponsors or anything like that. I just want to provide a solid, clean video at the end of 2023, but I do want to say thank you to you, my community, as well as the people in my community who have gone above and beyond this year, such as my Patreon members. You have provided so much to this channel this year. You all are so incredible, and I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for an incredible 2023. Now, with all of that said, let's get into today's video. Now, the RTX 4090 released back in October of 2022, so it's a little bit over a year old at this point. The US MSRP was $1,599 or $1,600. Now, unfortunately, today we are now seeing a lot of 4090s go up to the $2,000 range. But even right now, as I'm filming, I'm looking on newegg.com, and I can see that 4090s are selling for $2,000, $2,100, $2,200, and a lot of these were previously selling for $1,600 or $1,700. And so, unfortunately, the 4090 pricing is not where we would like for it to be, especially with an original US MSRP that was already $1,600. At the end of the day, this is just way too much for any GPU, no matter how good it is. However, if you have a 4090, or if you're looking to buy a 4090 in the future whenever prices come back down, the question is, how well does it stack up with games that only released brand new this year in 2023? Brand new games, not games that are 2, 3, 4 years old. Because a lot of times us reviewers, we like to get GPUs and we go through a standard benchmarking suite of games that we know that are popular and have built-in benchmarks and things of that nature. The problem with that methodology is that a lot of times those games become old. And I would hope and I would think that a GPU releasing in 2022 would be able to handle a game that came out in 2020 or 2021 because the game is older than the GPU. But what happens when the game is newer than the GPU? Can the GPU keep up? Well, I hope so, because not only is the 4090 incredibly expensive, but it is also the fastest gaming GPU on the market and the fastest gaming GPU that consumers have ever had access to. And so, without any further ado, let's talk about the testing scenarios, the games, and the benchmarks. And now all the hardware used for today's benchmarks is now listed on the screen. And while yes, it is all important, for the sake of time, I will only go over a couple of items. The CPU is the Intel 14700K. The P cores are locked at 5.7 gigahertz. The E cores are locked at 4.5 gigahertz. The GPU is the NVIDIA RTX 4090. It is at a stock configuration, no undervolt or overclock, and it's the PNY XLR8 model. For my RAM configuration, I am using a DDR5 T-Force Delta kit running at 7000 megahertz, and the motherboard is the ASUS ROG MAXIMUS Z690 Hero. And now here's all the game settings that I used for all of today's benchmarks. Everything was ran at native 4K. There was no added ray tracing, which means if the preset included ray tracing, I left it, but if the preset did not include ray tracing, I did not turn it on. No upscaling of any kind. This includes DLSS, FSR, and XESS. There is one exception with Remnant 2 because I did want to show both the before and after results when using DLSS, so native 4K is still there as well, and everything was ran at maximum settings. Sometimes the terminology is ultra, other times it is epic, sometimes it even says the word best, but essentially all settings were maxed out for better or worse. And lastly, I did disable motion blur, and the reason for that is because I do feel like most PC gamers disable motion blur, and all the presets enable motion blur. Okay, first up is the Finals. This is a brand new shooter that just came out in December. It's on Steam right now. It is free to play. This is native 4K running on the Epic preset. And as you can see, our average frame rate is about 116 FPS. Obviously, there is going to be fluctuations in all games around here, but with the destructible environments and the fast-paced gameplay at native 4K with everything maxed out, as you can see, 116 FPS is pretty rock solid on average. And overall, the frame time graph is not looking too bad either. We're only using about 5 gigabytes of VRAM, but the system is trying to allocate 8 gigabytes of VRAM, but either way, it's totally fine, as the 4090 does have 24 gigabytes of VRAM, and the 14700K is doing quite well, hovering around the 60s in terms of the temperature, and the 4090 is also doing well, also hovering in the 60s. And overall, our GPU utilization is looking decent at 99%. Next up is Forza Motorsport. Again, native 4K on the Ultra preset. This does include ray tracing. I did run the built-in benchmark, which is surprisingly very short, and on average, the 4090 is achieving 100 FPS. At native 4K with everything maxed out, the game is allocating 12.6 gigabytes of VRAM, but only using about 9.4 gigabytes of VRAM. GPU utilization is looking strong at 99%. Our frame time graph is actually quite smooth overall, and our 1% lows are about 73 FPS. It did rise and fall during the benchmark, but the final reading by the benchmark is 73.3 FPS. Next up is Hogwarts Legacy. I absolutely love this game, and I had so much fun with it this year, but unfortunately, I was incredibly disappointed with the overall performance of this game. The Ultra preset has seemingly been broken ever since the game launched. I know they have made a few updates to the game to improve it, but as you can see here, native 4K Ultra preset with an RTX 4090. Our average frame rate, yeah, it's looking good at 90 FPS, but look at those 1% lows, 45 to 46 FPS, which is absolutely atrocious. That is not something you want to see on a $1,600 GPU now selling for $2,000 plus. Now, I do understand a lot of people will say, hey, why did you run this on Ultra? You shouldn't run games on Ultra. Ultra is diminishing returns. You should run the games on high or something like that, or a combination of settings. And overall, I would say for the best optimal experience, absolutely. But in order to do an objective benchmark and to be consistent and to be fair, whenever I start using a setting, I need to use that setting for every game on here to be consistent. Additionally, the beauty about 4K and Ultra and all of that is that that is the worst case scenario. It will only get better as you start to utilize technologies like frame generation and DLSS and FSR, and you start to turn down other settings. And if you take a look at our frame time graph, you can see that the time isn't all that bad necessarily. I mean, sometimes you're at, 8 or 9 milliseconds, but look how wavy that graph is. It is not smooth at all. That's not what we want to see here. The last patch for this game was June 2nd of 2023. It is currently December of 2023. Now, here's a game that I think all developers should pay very close attention to from a game optimization perspective. Lies of P. Native 4K on the max settings, which is referred to as the best preset. And as you can see at native 4K with everything maxed out, we are averaging about 207 to 208 FPS with our 1% lows at 116 FPS. That is nothing short of impressive. Now, I will admit that is a massive dip in terms of 1% lows, but when you're above 100 FPS for your 1% lows, it makes for a much smoother gameplay experience across the board. And when you look at our frame time graph here, this is exactly what you want to see. 3 to 4, maybe 5 milliseconds. Look how fast it is. Look how smooth it is overall. You don't have a bunch of bumps and waves and things of that nature. And in terms of VRAM, for everything to be maxed out, it's only allocating 9 gigabytes and utilizing 6.5 gigabytes. Our GPU utilization is at 99 to even 100% in most cases. And our GPU temperature is around 66°C. So that tells me that this game is really working the 4090 and really taking advantage of it. And I can get on board with that. Now, one final thing I want to leave you with here when it comes to Lies of P is that this game is absolutely gorgeous. I'm about to show some footage where your character opens up a door and it really shows more of the world. And I pan the camera around the environment just to show off the detail because I really want you to see just how gorgeous this game is. This game, in my opinion, is one of the best looking games that released in 2023. I'm not saying it's the best. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just simply saying it is one of the best. It is absolutely absolutely gorgeous. And when you have a game that can perform this well and look this good, I think that says a lot about game optimization, and it really kind of shows the capabilities of the 4090 and what could be done with proper game optimization. Next up is Resident Evil 4 Remake, running at native 4K on the max preset. This does include ray tracing, and as you can see, we are averaging 150 FPS. Our frame time graph is incredibly smooth, a little bit of a bump there transitioning into and out of a very small cutscene or cinematic, if you will, but overall our frame time graph is buttery smooth. This is by far one of the better looking games that we received this year, one of the most critically acclaimed games we received this year, and of course one of the most well optimized games that released in 2023. Now yes, this game did release with a few bugs and things of that nature, but most of that has now been ironed out. I know VRAM was an issue early on, and if you look at the VRAM here, you will see there is about a 2 GB difference between the allocation and the usage. Later in the benchmark, you will see the VRAM rise above 15 GB of allocation and around 13.5 to 13.6 of VRAM usage. And so the VRAM here seems to only keep increasing as the game progresses. And so this is definitely a VRAM heavy game. And I do think that makes sense when you look at the game, when you look at the textures, when you look at the detail, you can see this game is incredibly gorgeous, and Capcom did a phenomenal job remaking this game. Still, the 4090 here absolutely crushes this game with everything maxed out. It's a fun game, it's a well optimized game, and the 4090 is doing what it should do. Next up is Starfield, running at native 4K on the Ultra preset, although I did turn off FSR and I forgot to disable motion blur, so technically that is still on, but everything else is the equivalent of the Ultra preset. As you can see with the 4090, we're averaging about 90 to 92 FPS. The 1% lows are in the 70s, and the GPU temperature is just below 60C. I think later in the benchmark it will actually rise up to 60C, and the VRAM allocation is just under 8 GB, and the VRAM usage is just over 6 GB. Overall, I don't really have much else to say about this game and the benchmarking performance. I've already done 2 full videos on this game with the 4090, both with a 7800X3D and a 14700K very recently, and so if you saw either of those videos, especially the more recent one, then these numbers should not surprise you. And outside of all that, I don't really have much else to say about this game. About 90 to 91 FPS is your average at native 4K. Next up is Remnant 2, and let me tell you about this game just really fast. I've been addicted to this game for the last 2 weeks. I've been playing it with people in my Discord who are Patreon members and subscribers of the channel. I've also been playing it with my best friend. This game is addicting to me. I definitely recommend it. I like it. I think it is a sleeper. I think this game does not get enough recognition. It's different, it's fun, it's challenging, and if you like Souls games, I think you'll definitely like this game. Now, with all that being said, unfortunately, the performance is not something that I can praise with the same amount of enthusiasm. As you can see here with the RTX 4090 at native 4K on the Ultra preset, the average frame rate is only 68 FPS, with the 1% lows down to 55 FPS. This is definitely playable for sure, and obviously if we turn down some settings, the frame rate would improve, and obviously if we use DLSS, which I will here in just a minute, or frame generation, which is something else that also exists in this game, then the performance is now magically no longer a problem. But given the fact that this game launched with many issues and a bunch of performance optimization issues, it makes me wonder if all of those have still been ironed out. And it also makes me wonder just how much of the performance that we're getting is all linked to just game optimization issues or Unreal Engine optimization issues. As you can see, once again, another game out there that strongly encourages you to take advantage of NVIDIA technologies like frame generation and DLSS. And as soon as I turn on DLSS quality, which is now natively rendering at 1440p and upscaling to 4K, you can see that our average frame rate is now sitting at 119 FPS, and our 1% lows are now sitting at 103 FPS. So not quite a doubling of the frame rate, but definitely a substantial improvement across the board. And so simply by turning on DLSS quality, we see a massive performance uplift here. And obviously if we got off the Ultra preset, we would see the frame rate climb even higher. If we enabled frame generation, we would also see the frame rate go up higher. I would like to see closer to 100 FPS as an average at native 4K with the 4090 on the Ultra preset. And even though the performance isn't where I want it to be natively, there are some people who are totally fine with 68 FPS as an average because all they're shooting for is 4K 60. And if that's issue, then great. I just don't like the idea of using a $1,600 plus GPU in order to do that. Next up is the Dead Space Remake, running at native 4K on the Ultra preset. Our average frame rate is 106 FPS. Our 1% low is 61 FPS. Our GPU temperature is sitting at 64C with 100% GPU utilization. Our VRAM allocation is just over 10 gigabytes, and our VRAM usage is just under 8 gigabytes. All in all, if you look at the frame time graph here, it definitely shows that there is more performance that could be had here. It's nowhere near as smooth as Lies of P, but it's nowhere near as bad as Hogwarts Legacy, and I think that's why the frame rate is actually better at native 4K Ultra preset in Dead Space than it is in Hogwarts Legacy. I know it says that our GPU here is being leveraged at 100%, and that may be true. In my opinion, with a 14700K and an RTX 4090, that frame time graph should definitely be a lot smoother than what we're seeing. Next up is Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, running at native 4K on the Ultra preset. First of all, this game was provided to me for this benchmark by a Patreon member, YouTube subscriber, Discord member, all the things. Shadow Fox, thank you so much, man, for the support. I really do appreciate it. You're incredibly awesome. Thank you. Now, with all that being said, as you can see, our average frame rate is sitting at 66 FPS with the 1% lows sitting at 57 FPS. Now, the VRAM allocation here is pushing close to 17 gigabytes, and the VRAM usage is pushing close to 15 gigabytes. This game at native 4K on the Ultra preset is definitely VRAM heavy. However, our GPU utilization is sitting at 100%, and our GPU temperature is just below 70C, sitting at 67 to 68C. So the 4090 is definitely being worked a little bit harder in this game, and I think it shows, and I think we know why. This game is absolutely incredible. This very well may be the best looking game I've seen maybe ever. I don't know, I would have to really think about that. This game is absolutely gorgeous. I have a 4K OLED LG TV. I've done a full video about it here on the channel, and that is what my PC is connected to as my monitor. This game pops and it shines. It is absolutely gorgeous. It is a game where I can look at the performance and I can look at the VRAM utilization and I can say, you know what, that makes sense. Based on what I'm seeing here, that makes sense, because the graphics and the details within those graphics absolutely warrant it and justify it. But yeah, anyway, Avatar is absolutely beautiful. Thank you again, Shadow Fox. And now let's move on to our final game. And the final game on the list is Wild Hearts, running at native 4K on the high preset. The high preset is the highest preset in the game. This is maximum graphics. And as you can see, our average frame rate is sitting at 90 FPS. Our GPU utilization is at 96%, so it could be a little bit better, but still not the end of the world. Our GPU temperature is 63 to 64C. Our VRAM allocation is sitting at 9.8 gigabytes. Our VRAM usage is sitting at 7.1 gigabytes. Now, if you look at the frame time graph, if you look at the smoothness of the graph, it actually looks a lot better than something like Hogwarts Legacy or even the Dead Space Remake, because the graph is a lot smoother. But overall, this is a game that launched with a bunch of performance issues, from DLSS to sparkling lights and stuff. I briefly covered it in a video called The Problem with PC Gaming, and in that video I refer to Oh No It's Alex's video where he did a review of it, a PC port video showing all the problems with this game. Additionally, speaking of Alex over at Digital Foundry also labeled Wild Hearts as the worst PC port of 2023. And now thankfully the developers have come in and patched the game, and they have fixed a lot of the problems. It is looking better, it is running better across the board. It doesn't have as many bugs and glitches and things of that nature. Now, with that being said, Wild Hearts is not a game that's for me, but it is a game that has a lot of potential, and I know a lot of people who are actually interested in this game. And so if you have a 4090, this is what your performance will look like, give or take, depending on your RAM speed and your CPU and any other varying components within your system. Okay, that was a ton of information, and so I want to try and simplify some things. I never really know how to end videos these days. I don't really know what my final point with this video was. I really just wanted to take a look at all the games that released in 2023 and put them against the fastest gaming GPU on the market in 2023, which is the RTX 4090. And overall, I think the 4090 did a good job. Again, everything was ran at native 4K on the Ultra or maximum quality preset with no upscaling. And I did do a 10 game average average, and on average for these 10 games, we got 108 FPS. Now, I don't know if you personally think that's a good thing or a bad thing. I know a lot of people these days are trying to target 4K 144 Hertz or at a minimum 4K 120 in terms of their displays that they're using for their PCs. And so if you're finding out that on average your 4090 is only doing 4K 108, then maybe you're a little bit disappointed. But I think if you look at it in other ways, then things might make a little bit more sense. I mean, these are games that are not all well optimized. Some of them are very much optimized quite well. I mean, you look at Resident Evil 4, the remake, it was averaging 150 FPS with no upscaling on the maximum quality preset, including ray tracing at native 4K. And then you look at Liza P, also native 4K, the maximum quality preset, it was averaging over 200 FPS with no help from upscaling. And so we do have current AAA titles in 2023 that are getting nominated for awards and winning awards at the Game Awards, and they're fun to play and they're critically acclaimed and they look absolutely phenomenal, and the 4090 is pushing hundreds of frames per second at native 4K. But then we also have games that are brand spanking new where the 4090 is struggling to hit 60 or get a little bit above 60 FPS at the maximum quality preset, and that's a game like Avatar, for example, or a game like Remnant 2, for example. And these are examples where Remnant 2, I do have my doubts and questions about the game optimization and the experience by the developers working with a brand new engine with the Unreal Engine 5. Remnant 2 was one of the first games to launch with Unreal Engine 5. And then you have Avatar, which looking at it, it looks like it's trying to break the pinnacle of graphical technology in terms of what it's trying to push. The game is absolutely stunning. It looks phenomenal. I would definitely recommend trying to experience it for yourself, because I'm sure through the YouTube algorithm and the compression and all of that, it's not going to do it justice. Overall, the 4090 is a phenomenal GPU. The only problem is it is incredibly expensive, and it's only getting more expensive by the day for a variety of reasons. But even at the MSRP of $1,600, the card is just too expensive. But if you do manage to get your hands on one at MSRP or lower, or you already have one, then you can rest assured you are getting the fastest gaming GPU that money can buy. And that's exciting. It really is. At least the fastest for today in 2023 going into 2024. I don't know what it will look like by the end of 2024, but hey, get subscribed and find out when that time comes. Hey, look, thank you so much for an incredible 2023. It was absolutely phenomenal. I'm so grateful for the amount of growth and the amount of people who have joined the community this year. Thank you so much to everybody who worked with me this year and helped me to get to where I'm at. I am so grateful for that. I'm incredibly excited for 2024. I'm exhausted. I got to get this video published on YouTube, so I need to stop talking now. But thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, do me a favor, hit that like button because it goes a long way in helping me out. Consider subscribing, joining the Patreon. You can get access to Discord for just $1, all the things, you know what to do. Drop a comment. I look forward to talking to you down below. And until next time, E-Rock out.